All right, here we are. We're going to do a little review of the American system. And as you recall from today's class, we were talking about the War of 1812 and how that ended up, right? And at the end of the War of 1812, we had the Hartford Convention. And at that convention, a lot of Federalists showed up, talked about New England seceding from the Union, and ended with the Federalists really being marginalized and not having the kind of power they had before. Even though the Democratic Republicans didn't have to worry about the Federalists anymore, they were still pretty worried about all the tensions that existed between the different regions of the country. We had the Northeast with their manufacturing, and we had the South and the West with the farming. So Henry Clay had a three-part plan in order to try to improve the tensions that existed between the different sections. Here's a political cartoon, and you can see Henry Clay right here. He is looking pretty smug and satisfied with his plan, but as you can tell from the cartoon as a whole, this isn't a plan that a lot of people felt was extremely successful. Success was definitely limited. So it's a three-part plan, and they're going to be, the first part would be the national bank, the second is going to deal with transportation, and the third with a protective tariff. So we'll take them one at a time. The first part is the Second National Bank of the United States. And I'm sure you recall from not so long ago, the First National Bank of the United States, and who was our founding father who brought that into effect through his report on public credit. I hope you got it, and I hope you said Alexander Hamilton. And Alexander Hamilton was, in fact, the advocate for the First National Bank, and that was a huge success. But its charter expired in 1811. And so now Henry Clay is trying to bring it back. Success the first time, hopefully success the second time. And hopefully a way to, again, bring our country together. The next idea was improved transportation. And here you can see a map of what was called the National Road. And this National Road extended and ran east-west and connected the Ohio River with the Potomac River, which was really important for trade and commerce, and also was the first major highway built by the federal government. So this is an instance where the federal government did support the improvement of transportation with federal money. However, as you can see from my notes on the right-hand side of the screen, there were instances where, for example, Calhoun with his bonus bill was trying to get federal funding for other road and canal projects and was unsuccessful in that bill was vetoed by Madison. However, there was still a lot of improvement, even with or without federal funding. And one example of that is the Erie Canal. Here's a map of the Erie Canal, and stretching from Buffalo by Lake Erie, running through Rochester, Syracuse, and connecting with the Hudson River at Albany. And that was an enormous success. It paid for itself in 9 years. And also at this time, we had the invention of steamboats. And before that time, we had towpaths, and they were useful in terms of transportation. But now we have steamboats, and on their own, steam power can go upstream and downstream. We're going to take another look here at Google Earth and take that path in reverse. So starting in New York City, and which was at the mouth of the Hudson River then, becoming a huge trading port, and following it back, going upstream to the east end of the Erie Canal. You can see Albany here, and all those little orange houses are all locks, which were used because the elevation from Albany in the east, and then to the west end of the canal was over 500 feet. So in order to raise and lower the ships, they needed all these locks. And I will cruise over to the western end, and you can kind of see the layout here. And this is an old map overlay on top of that canal. And now the third part of Henry Clay's American System plan then was the Tariff of 1816. Protective tariffs, as you know from earlier this year, are taxes on imported goods, and they were often put in place to protect United States manufacturing. So Tariff of 1816 dealt with all of these items that you see depicted here, and you would think that this would be something that a lot of people would like, and certainly people in the Northeast did, right? If this is something that's going to protect United States manufacturing, the Northeast will love this. However, the question is here, is this going to relieve sectional tension? And ultimately, it failed, because when you think about the farmers, they're not really going to be loving this protective tariff. If you are a cotton farmer in Virginia and you want to be able to sell your cotton both to American manufacturers and ones overseas, but the protective tariff is cutting back on their business, that's not really going to be good for you and your farm. So this wraps up the American system. Mixed success in terms of what Henry Clay was trying to achieve. And you can see that this idea of sectional tension is going to continue on. And we'll talk about tomorrow the Missouri Compromise, a compromise in which it definitely draws attention to the tension that's existing, again, between North and South, between free states and slave states. See you then.